the Fox Robbins Business Show. Thank you for returning to the show. And I'm the co-host of the show, Bill Fox. The other co-host is the luminescent, the multifarious, and perceptive Cliff Robbins.
Multi what? You're a walking dictionary.
Coach, you're an exciting person.
I think I know what that means.
And you keep telling me how women keep following you down the boulevard, and you're famous and well known.
I'm so famous because of this show. I just can't go out in the public. I can't. Tom Brady.
Dark glasses.
Yeah, dark glasses. Tom Cruise. The three of us. I know how Tom Cruise feels. Not.
This show, the Fox Robbins Show, is all about developing your best business ideas. Whatever category, if you are just simply thinking about forming a business, if you've actually started and maybe things are going well, maybe they're not, maybe you need some advice or direction or help, assistance, encouragement, or you have in fact started a business and it's going quite well, thank you very much, but maybe some changes are in store. Such as expanding into new products, into new market arenas, adding import, export, or buying a competitor, whatever it might be. We're going to deal, with all of that. And speaking of which,
the multifarious face of business.
We did this. This show is this particular episode is going to be about how to buy a business part 2. Because we previously did part 1, which is where you might be just in the thinking stage, whether this is your first attempt getting into business or whether you're in business and you're looking at maybe buying, a competitor, whatever the deal might be, right. Buying a business. Speaking of which, if this is your first attempt at business, this is a big deal to decide whether to start from scratch. Or take the franchise route, yep. which we've spoken to, previously, or buy an existing business, right. which is an exciting possibility, but complicated.
What's exciting right now, as of this date, because all of the boomers are coming of age.
Oh, yeah.
All of the boomers are coming of age. They've run their business for 30 years. They're in their mid-60s, and they're all looking to say, well, you know what, it's time for me to retire, sell the business. This is my biggest retirement plan, is I sell this business for a lot of money, and then, I go play bingo for the rest of my life. So there's a huge bubble coming on us right now of boomers ready to sell.
So taking this route is a greater possibility because there'd be good choices coming
Absolutely.
along.
Over the next 10 to 15 years, this is a tremendous opportunity
for
young people.
In this episode, this is How to Buy a Business Part 2. You have now decided that this is in fact what you want to do, the route that you want to take.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do next? What's your next step? And the next step is called due diligence.
Right.
That's kind of is that a little fancy or grandiose or
Well, it means make sure you're doing the right thing.
And the coach is gonna cover all aspects of the due diligence process.
Phase, right.
And Coach, why don't we get started?
Yep.
The first notes I have for you, is with regard to some of the physical, what you call the physical stuff, such as inventory. Furnitures, fixtures, equipment, land, buildings, if that's involved, and especially things that maybe it may not be right on the surface, such as contracts or legal documents that you don't know about,
right?
But that you do need to.
You're going to buy into, yeah.
Give us your comments on all of that?
Well, there's a couple of different things here that are important. First of all, if you're the type of business, if you're a service business, you don't have inventory. You're buying a service, it's a totally different situation. But if you're buying a distributor, if you're buying a retailer, and inventory's involved, then you have to be very careful what you're buying because a lot of inventory doesn't turn. The thing with inventory, the most important thing with inventory is you don't want any. Now, let me explain that clearly, okay? You can't operate from an empty wagon. But what your ideal situation, as I used to explain to my folks in the distribution business, is I want exactly the right things to come in the back door and have exactly the customers come in and exactly ask for what just came in, and it all goes out the front door. Now that's not possible, which is why we stock SKUs, stock keeping units, and I had 40,000 of them at several of my stores, 40,000 different items, because you don't know what mix people are going to come in. That's what distributors, wholesalers do. So you've got inventory, but the key to buying inventory is that you're buying stuff that turns and earns. In other words, stuff that moves, sells. Inventory that sits on your shelf month after month after month is a total loss. A total loss. It's not churning over, it's not earning you any money, it's tying up money, you're paying taxes on it, you're paying heat, you're paying square foot warehouse space. The most important thing I can say about inventory, whether you own it or you're buying a business and you're looking at it, make sure it's good, solid inventory that your customers are going to buy on a regular basis.
Okay.
As far as furniture, fixtures, equipment, well, you know, there's certain things you have to have. If you're buying a distribution business, for instance, you need cash registers, you need shelves, maybe you need the IT, maybe you don't. You're going to buy it at a reduced cost anyway. They've already been writing it off for years and years and years, and that's just totally negotiable. Buying land or building, when you're buying the business, if you're buying the building, instead of leasing the building, then that's simple. You got appraisals on the building, and banks are very happy to loan you money against the building because the collateral is there. I mean, plus it's insured. It burns down, they get the insurance. So they're very comfortable loaning you $500,000 to buy a $600,000 building or something like that. As a matter of fact, on a building, you can get a 504 loan, SBA-backed loan, and only put up 10%. So if it's a $500,000 building, you put up 50 grand, you borrow $450,000, and the SBA is guaranteeing 60, 70, 80% to the bank. So the bank has literally no risk. So they're very willing to give you a loan to buy the building from with the business that's in it. So you're buying the business and you're buying the property. Contracts, legal documents are all critical to the purchase and the transfer of the assets of the business. Generally speaking, just generally speaking, if I were to buy an existing business, I would buy the assets of the business. I would not touch the liabilities. I wouldn't buy the stock because I don't know what's hidden. I don't know what lawsuits might come up later if I just buy stock in the business, and I mean the shares, the equity in the business. Usually you buy the assets, you pay them for them, you buy the inventory, you might even buy the receivables as they collect out, and you buy the goodwill, and you start your own corporation. That's generally the way things are done.
And we're gonna touch on a lot more of that. And I believe in part 4, we're going to talk about what's called structuring the deal, and what the coach just said is going to play a key part in that thinking.
Yep.
And so let's move on. There's other parts of the due diligence, which would be incorporation.
Move on.
If there is incorporation, tax returns. There's a good one. The financials, the P&L, the balance sheet, if there's
cash flow statements.
If there is such a thing as a cash flow statement, if a business has been preparing those, or if they're available, or if they can be prepared, for you, and the sales what are the sales of the business, and where's it coming from, and liabilities. Right. Coach, what about these items?
Well, incorporation, I mean, the thing with incorporation has to do with liabilities, quite frankly. And like I said to you, if I were buying a company that's existing, I'd buy their assets, I'd let them fold up their own corporation, and if it was ABC company, I'd call it ABC2 Incorporated and just start a new corporation. I don't want to deal with anything that's hidden in the woods for that other company. You incorporate to protect yourself, to protect your own assets. A corporation, whether it's a C Corp, and for most small businesses, it would be an S Corporation, and that's a whole different subject because there's no tax at the federal level. There's not duplication tax, singularity of tax.
Or a sole proprietorship.
A sole proprietorship, then you're liable. It's you. You're running the business, so I can sue you. But if your corporation, if I can't sue you personally, I'd have to sue the corporation, keep it as a shell corporation, and at least you get to sleep at night. Incorporating or LLC, which is the new kid in the block since 1997 or so, limited liability company, protects you from lawsuits to some degree, as long as it's clean. So you would think about, well, I'm running a restaurant. Ooh, I don't want to run a restaurant in Cliff Robbins' name. I'd rather run it as a separate person, because if, God forbid, somebody gets sick, somebody chokes, they're going to sue. They can't sue me personally because I own the restaurant.
Yeah.
Personally, if I own the restaurant in my own name, they can sue me. My home, my equity, my 401k. Remember it was a 201k? Way back when we were shooting a show 5-6 years ago?
201k.
Yeah, it was half of what it was worth. Well, it's almost back to where it was anyway, so it's not back to a 401k. It's all at risk, So you set a corporation up because you're concerned about liabilities.
Or
right?
watch out, it could be a partnership, it could be a legal partnership, it's possible.
Well, illegal partnerships are just two sole proprietors. You're still responsible. Now, if you're rich, and I'm not, and you and I have a partnership, and somebody wants to, they're going to sue you for the whole thing, because you're the deep pocket. So look, you got to incorporate or set up an LLC if you want the liability protection.
Okay. Tax returns, financial sales liabilities, what were your comments on that?
Well, as far as tax returns goes, quite frankly, when I saw this thing, I said, well, you got to your tax returns. You got to do your taxes. When you're buying a business, you want to see the tax returns. You don't want to look at the financial statements. Financial statements might show that they're making $200,000 a year, but their tax returns are showing they're making $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
You got to go by what they're reporting. You know they're making at least that much. A bank is not going to loan you money on their financial statements. They're going to loan you money based against the tax returns.
Yeah.
Now, when people are out there playing this underground game with their business, and they're running their business and not putting all of the revenue through and stealing whatever's going on, first of all, they're breaking the law. Second of all, and they're looking to sell the business, you know what I call that? Stupid. All right? Okay. Put all the money in the cash register, for God's sakes. First of all, be legal. But second of all, show people what this business really has got for sales. Because that's what people are buying when they buy a business. They're buying sales, but more importantly, they're buying seller's discretionary earnings, what we call SDE. But if businesses are looking to sell, then what the lenders are going to look at, and what you should look at, is the tax return. You know they made that much money or they wouldn't be paying taxes on it, okay?
Right. Another key set of information that you have to perform due diligence on would be receivables. To any money that's the business is supposed to be receiving or
right.
entitled to receive.
Yep.
Payables,
Yep.
what is supposed to be payable to
right.
some outside
The
party.
suppliers, the stuff you buy.
Debts
Yep.
that the business has incurred, and merchandise returns.
Yep.
Back to inventory.
Right, stuff coming back to you, even if it's good. Let's just touch on them one at a time. As there's a lot of information here, and we try to do all of this stuff in a half-an-hour show, which I know is difficult for you to digest, but I've been doing this for 40 years, so it's easy for me to digest. Receivables. Unfortunately for you, Jenny's retired. Oh, Jenny was in charge of my receivables, and God forbid you didn't pay Jenny, because she would rip you apart, okay? Look you buy receivables, you buy a receivable that's over 90 days, you ain't going to collect that money, because they're probably not going to collect the money, okay? You might buy it at a discounted rate, but receivables, if you're buying the assets of a company, and a receivable is an important asset, then you want to make sure that if you pay for it, you're going to collect the money at least, okay? And so when you're buying it, quite frankly, you make the person that's selling you the business guarantee its collectability.
Yeah.
And if you don't collect it, well, you know what? He refunds that money to you, and then it's up to him and his lawyers to go collect it, because once you turn it over the hands of a lawyer, there goes a third right off the top, okay? So as far as payables go, you can take on the payables to lower the purchase price. It's like borrowing money. When somebody's buying stuff and paying 30 days hence, you buy the payable, that just reduces the price of the business. As far as merchandise returns go, it's a minor issue, but you would like to see what a percentage of stuff do people buy that is returned. It should be within industry standards. If it's high, you have to say to yourself, why does this company have so big a process of buying stuff, putting it on the shelf, selling it, and then it's coming back? Like if 10% of the stuff's coming back, you have to say to yourself, why? That's far too high.
Yeah. The turning, from those items to items that require, more study and analysis. That I'm referring to customer patterns, so to speak. A marketing strategy. I mean, if there's an identifiable strategy,
If
well,
it better be.
And advertising and promotion work that the business is doing or is not doing. What's your comments on that?
All right, now my comment is, my beard really as white as your hair? Okay, anyway. Thank God we're getting older. Customer patterns. I mean, we've talked on this show ad infinitum about CRM, customer relationship management, right?
Absolutely.
I want to know everything I can know about my customer, all right? What are their buying habits, I want to find out what street my buyer's on, and I want to put my stuff on that street. I mean, that's the way I explain to you. Yeah. And when you say, if there's a marketing strategy, there better be a marketing strategy, and you better monitor all the time. I tell people all the time, look, if you don't want to write a business plan, I don't have a big deal with that. You don't want to write a marketing plan, you and I are going to war, okay? You better have a written, constantly viewed, checked marketing plan, because remember, job one is to create customers. Yeah. Remember that.
Number one.
Job one. Your job when you own a business, start a business, buy a business. You're there to create a customer, because if you don't do that, you got a nice hobby, but you don't have a business, right? The way you do that is by executing a good written marketing strategy. And part of marketing strategy is, how do I promote this business? Whether it's advertising, whether it's sales, whether it's whatever it is, out on the internet, social networking. There's so many different ways of promoting your business. You better pay attention to that stuff, because that's where success or failure comes from, is a well-executed marketing strategy, a marketing plan.
And following on to the, following on from the marketing strategy, you would want to be looking at price checks. You would want to be looking at the industry. You're thinking about the industry that the business is in or participates in, the market background. This requires some study and analysis work. And what about the location and market area of influence of this business? Those are important, aren't they?
All of those things are important in every business. When you say price checks, you want to make sure that your company you're buying is not just out there selling everything cheap below the market price, because you're not in business to sell everything cheaper. You're there to provide value. Hopefully you are providing enough value that people are actually paying you an above average price. But you want to check the industry, the pricing structure of the company you're buying. You want to check, when I say check the industry, I do like three-hour sessions on Michael Porter's 5 Forces to look at an industry to see, is this really the type of business I want to get into? Who's got the power? Customers, rivalry, new entrants,
vendors.
I mean, I could, like I said, I could do 9 hours on that alone, but you want to make sure it's an industry, A, you understand, and B, is on the uptick. That's even better. But, most industries are pretty, in the mature stage, the industry life cycle curve. That's another thing we could talk about. When it comes to location, location. I mean, the two things you need, if you're in the B2C world, business to consumer world, you better darn right well have a good visible location that the customer can easily get to, right?
Right.
They can come in, they see your sign right on the main street, they pull right up to your front door, they walk in and they buy your inventory, right? You're hidden on a back street, you don't have good signage, they're driving by, they don't know you're there. Location to some businesses is critical. To some it's not, but you got to decide what industry is location really critically important with, and is this one?
All right. What about, you're going to have a tricky area here that we get into in this due diligence is ethics and reputation. Maybe behind also behind the scenes. The seller and the customer, the seller-customer ties, the link between sellers and customers. And what about some nasty items like inflated salaries or payments, nefarious payments, and so forth?
Well, I'll get to inflated salaries, not necessarily nefarious. If you own the business and you want to pay yourself a ridiculously high salary, hey, it's your business. I have no problem with that. You're making that kind of money. Let's start first with ethics and reputation. I mean, the ethics and the reputation of a business, when you're buying the goodwill, I didn't say bad will, okay? You're buying the goodwill of a business. Ethics is a funny thing. But you don't want to buy a business that has a bad reputation in its market or industry or whatever. That's for darn sure. So naturally, you're going to be talking to some of the customers to say, what do you think of the company and the people that are running it? When it comes to the seller and the customer ties, just how important is the founder of the business, the lead guy in the business, to the customer tie? If he's got all the customer ties and he leaves and you lose all the customers, that's a real big issue, especially in a service industry,
right,
like consulting or a CPA. You're buying his practice, but it's the guy, the person, the woman who really has the customer relationships. So that's a tricky issue. You've got to look at that one very, very closely. And as far as inflated salaries go, that's a good thing, quite frankly. If I'm buying a business and I'm buying this $2.5 million business and it's dropping $100,000 to the bottom line, well, that's $100,000 worth of revenue, profit I'm buying.
yeah,
But the guy's taking $250,000 a year salary out of it. What's his business? He can do whatever he wants. But you know what? I'm looking at it and saying, wait a minute. I buy a business for 3 reasons. Number one, I need a job. I have to work and eat and support a family. Number two, if I'm going to run that business, I deserve a commensurate salary. But maybe the commensurate salary for running the business, I might be able to hire somebody for $100,000 to run the business, right?
right,
That would give me, if he's taking $250, another $150 of profit that I can take.
Right.
So that's where you have to really dig in and do your due diligence and find out what is the real number this business is making. And that's what we call seller's discretionary earnings, right?
Right.
So in the example I just gave you, I look and see the business making $100,000, but the owner's taking out $250,000 a year and buying a new $50,000 car every year.
yeah,
I can say, hey, you know what? That's $200,000 that I wouldn't have to pay to somebody if I didn't run the business. That really drops to me as the investor of the business. You buy a business because you need a job, you deserve a salary for doing the job, and you deserve a profit. That could all drop to profit for the business. So I didn't even have to work there. I just have to buy the business, be a shareholder, and make sure the business is run right. So different issue. Inflated salaries? No, I think
well,
it's a good thing.
the payments thing I put in there, I mean, that's, I walked in on a business where, the business had a special deal, with an outside vendor.
Oh, yeah,
to use exclusively and only that outside vendor, and not, shop intelligently, for the best price and terms,
Right. Yep.
and so forth. I mean, it was a sweetheart deal.
Yeah.
And there was money going to that vendor, and then, and kickbacks
Yeah.
coming back. I mean,
Yeah, kickbacks is a bad word. Refunds, commissions. I bought a distributor, right, that had a very special arrangement with a local manufacturer, right? It was a great deal, okay? One of the things I did is I went to the manufacturer and said, I'm going to buy the business, right? Do I get the same deal? And they said, yeah, of course you do, Because not only did I take the business from 1.3 million to 22 million over the next 7 years, okay? But I got very special pricing from them. I got immediate delivery because they were just in the next town over. I just happened to be lucky. I got price protection. If the market went up and I bought, right, I got the lowest price. If the market dropped and I already bought, they'd readjust the price. I mean, it's just a great sweetheart deal. I loved it. It was a great deal. But you make sure if you're buying the company
that it was a great deal.
Yeah, that great deal continues on with you. All right.
well, we're going to finish off this due diligence. I mean, this is a lot of work. Please don't be overwhelmed. I mean, it sounds like, but it's
all in the preparation, and 80% of it's in the due diligence.
Take it step by step.
80%.
Don't rush it. Don't overlook the details. Take your time.
Critically important.
Okay. Let's finish off with. We're going to look at employees. I call it the organization of the business. How it's organized.
Yep.
And how about things like licensing and regulations, insurance, and product liability? That's a good one.
Okay, again, there's a lot of varied things in this PowerPoint, and we can talk about it forever. I mean, employees, you know, you want to buy a business that got some employees that have been around a while. That means they're competent, usually, or the other guy, you know, the owner would have fired him. That means they're dedicated to the business. You want to hang on to the good employees, naturally. So you really do want to talk about the guy you're buying the business from, about every single employee in the business, okay, or every critical. It's, you know, 200-300 employees. You can't talk about them all, but they're not all important. But the top 20% are important. I'd like to know about each manager, et cetera, along with the business. As far as organization goes, I'm not even sure what that bullet is looking for, to be honest with you. What kind of an organization are they running? Are they running, you know, an amorphic organization, a highly structured organization? I assume that's what that means.
Yes, it does.
Okay. You know, a small business usually doesn't have a very steep organizational chart. You know, CEO,
But it might be
president.
also something very simple, is that you've got your son-in-law, you know, for instance, you know, as the CEO.
Yeah.
And who doesn't deserve, you know, that.
You don't hire him.
That rank.
You say, you know, he can go with
That's
you.
organization is that
Yeah.
you got as sitting there as president.
You're only going to fire him anyway if he's a bum. And I quite frankly, when I bought a business once, and I inherited a manager who, quite frankly, wasn't very good, and I had to let him go within a year. But you know, I own the business. He's not protected. I'm buying the business now. It's my name on the loan document. It's my money in the business. He didn't do the job. He and I part companies. So, I mean, I want to make sure all the licenses are, you know, attuned to, and you're following all the industry regulations of business, victuals license, business license from the town. Those things are very, very important that they're all intact. Insurance, there's insurance, and we've done shows on insurance. There's insurance that you have to have by law.
Right.
There's insurance that you should have, and you could do a whole show on that. I think we did, didn't we?
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe we
And
have
then
to do it
there's
again.
nice insurance to have, like, you know, key partner insurance and, you know, something like that. You do have to have product. If you've got a product, you have product liability insurance, you know, and an umbrella to protect you any defects or anything that could happen there. So you need to make darn sure that that's all set.
Well, good. Thank you once again for joining us with the Fox Robbins Business Show. And I hope some of this information is helpful. I know it's a lot,
A ton.
like taking a drink
Yeah.
from a fire hose, so to speak. But buying a business, there is a lot of work to be done in the due diligence. So we'll see you again, and thank you again for watching the Fox Robbins Show. Come back again.